Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we are in historic Savannah, Georgia, and we're taking a look around Colonial Park Cemetery. It's the oldest cemetery here in Savannah, Georgia, and there are some really interesting people laid to rest here. There's some interesting stories here, and there's a couple other things that I want to show you, so let's get into it. Now this is one of the most beautiful cemeteries you are probably going to ever see. There are old tombs, the classic old tombstones, and plenty of folks that have cemented their legacy in American history. Some of these are gated. Palm tree lined streets of Savannah. This right here is the final resting place of Archibald Bullock. He was a president of the First and Second Provincial Congress, and he was a delegate in 1775 to the Continental Congress. He became first president and commander-in-chief of Georgia in 1776. Now, one of the more notable names here in this cemetery is a man that you may have heard of and you may not have. His name is Button Gwinnett, and he was one of the men who signed our Declaration of Independence. Now, here's a little bit of backstory on him. He was born in England, and he tried his hand at a couple of businesses and failed. He ended up here in Savannah, Georgia, and he started a career in politics. Now, he didn't exactly make quick friends in his political career because he came across a man named Lockman McIntosh, and they did not see things eye to eye. And Button Gwinnett actually ended up charging McIntosh's brother with treason, and he challenged him to a duel. He lost the duel. Both men fired a shot, but Button Gwinnett succumbed to his injuries in 1777, just 1 year after signing the Declaration of Independence. But this is the final resting place here of Button Gwinnett. It's a beautiful marker, memorial. Button Gwinnett, born 1735, died 1777. Georgia signer of the Declaration of Independence, President of Georgia, whose remains buried in this cemetery are believed to lie entombed hereunder, was erected by the Savannah Chatham County Historic Site and Monument Commission, 1964. This is the signature that you can often see on the left-hand side on the bottom of the Declaration of Independence. 1776, a lot of people thought that the Declaration of Independence happened on July 4th, Independence Day, and that's not actually the case. The Declaration actually wasn't signed until August of 1776, but Button Gwinnett passed away the following year, which actually, for historic preservers and especially like autograph collectors, Button Gwinnett's signature is actually the most valuable of anybody who signed the Declaration of Independence. Just a little trivia. This is the tomb of James Johnston, born July 27th, 1769, died July 2nd, 1822. James Johnston was Georgia's first newspaper publisher and printer. Now, one of the most interesting things I think there is about this cemetery is that back during the war, soldiers came through here and kind of turned this into a camp, and they tipped over and knocked over a bunch of headstones to make room for camp. And a lot of those tombstones are not where they were in the cemetery, but they're along a back wall. And it's one of the most unique things I've ever seen, but it's very beautiful. So I'm going to show you that. This is the Tombstone Wall. Quite a few of them. I love that they preserved these and saved them, but I'm not sure if the cemetery or the Historical Society or anybody here knows where these people were laid to rest, or if any of these were if any of these were recreated or replaced, but a lot of these were knocked over by those who served in the war. Slightly haunting, but beautiful. As you can see, many of these definitely look their age. One thing that I love is this cemetery is very rich in historical plaques. It says, in this cemetery, many victims of the Great Yellow Fever epidemic of 1820 were buried. Nearly 700 Savannah Indians died that year, including 2 local physicians who lost their lives caring for the stricken. Several epidemics followed. In 1854, the Savannah Benevolent Association was organized to aid the families of the fever victims. Now this is one of the more interesting tombs here. Now this used to be the tomb of Nathaniel Greene. He was a major general in the Continental Army, but it's also the final resting place of John Maitland. It says this tomb, known as the Graham Vault, possesses the distinction of having been the burial place of 2 heroes of the Revolutionary War, one American, the other British. Maitland died at Savannah, October 26th of 1779. Nathaniel Greene passed away at June 19th, 1786. Now this was his burial place for until 1901, and then this tomb was opened and his remains were identified, and they put him in Johnson Square across town. But this, at one point, was the final resting place of Nathaniel Greene and John Maitland. John Maitland, I believe, is still here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was just Nathaniel Greene that was moved. His remains and those of his eldest son, George Washington Greene, now lie under the monument in Johnson Square. John Maitland. Here's a little more information about Colonial Park. It says this cemetery, the second in Colonial Savannah, was the burying ground for the city from about 1750 until it was closed against burials in 1853. It lists some of the names buried here, if you want to pause it and read it. It says the cemetery became a city park in 1896. And the sidewalks here are made with shells. It's a very peaceful place. I've been here twice on this trip already, and usually there's quite a few people walking dogs through here, riding bikes. It's a very active park. Here is Edward Green Malbone, 1777 to 1807. It says, beneath this modest slab rest the remains of America's foremost painter of miniatures. Here is Lachlan McIntosh, the man I mentioned earlier who killed Button Gwinnett in a duel. Here's some of the information here. It says Georgia's ranking Continental officer in the American Revolution was the son of John McIntosh, who settled with a group of Highlanders on the Altama in 1736. Said a firm supporter of American rights, McIntosh was commissioned colonel of the 1st Continental Regiment raised in Georgia. A feud with Button Gwinnett, signer of the Declaration of Independence, resulted in a duel fought near Savannah, May 16, 1777. McIntosh was transferred to General Washington's headquarters after Gwinnett's death. He served with credit at Valley Forge, and Washington, who described him as an officer of great worth and merit, later gave him command of the Western Department at Fort Pitt. Returning to Georgia in 1779, General McIntosh took part in the Siege of Savannah. His military career in the American Revolution, in which he had shed his blood defending Georgia's borders, terminated with his capture when Charleston fell in 1780. In 1784, the Continental Congress promoted McIntosh to Major General, vindicating him from his unjust suspension from command 4 years before as a result of representations to it by Governor Walton. The Patriot hero lived out his remaining years in Savannah. This is Joseph Valence Bevan, 1798 to 1830, recognized as Georgia's first official historian. Well, that will pretty much do it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this and maybe learned a little something. It's pretty amazing to be able to walk in history like this and to be able to learn a little bit about what some of these people did when they were alive. And it's really good that they preserve places like this and set up all the historical plaques like they do. So kudos to Savannah, Georgia for keeping the history alive. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you enjoyed this video, please consider doing so. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.